Chapter 10. For a moment, we all sat there, breathing hard, every inch of me wired with terror and adrenaline. The car was silent, except for our panicked breaths and the hollow ring of my pulse in my ears. I glanced around, my voice hoarse as I asked, Is everyone okay?" Lila nodded, her face white, hair tangled from the chaos. Darwin didn't speak. He just stared straight ahead, his chest heaving. I turned to him, about to check in, when I saw it. His eyes wide, brimming with terror, locked on something just beyond us. His mouth opened, but all he could manage was a faint look. My blood froze as I shifted my gaze to the road ahead. Lila looked too, her lips parting in shock as her eyes adjusted to what was slowly taking shape in the headlights. Out in the fog, the creature was picking itself up. The headlights cast a narrow beam, illuminating a horrific silhouette as it rose from the ground. It was hunched over, its thin, skeletal arms braced against the road, and I could hear the nauseating, wet crack of its bones as it reassembled itself, limbs contorting, joints popping back into place with sickening precision. Its body seemed to twist and writhe as it straightened, almost like it was pulling itself into some grotesque something it could barely hold. Its head came up last, swinging slowly, unnaturally, until it faced us fully. And then it stood, towering over 8 feet tall, with an unnatural thinness that defied anything remotely human. The eyes were the last thing to settle, 2 dead, glassy orbs glowing a faint, chilling blue. Its head tilted, fixing me with that horrid stare, and in that moment, everything else faded away. The silence, the mist, the road. All that existed were those eyes, sunken deep within its skull-like face. They were hollow, almost dead, yet there was a spark there, a dark, insatiable spark that burrowed into me. Hunger. That was the only word I could find to describe what I saw. A raging, animalistic hunger that went beyond physical need. One that felt as though it craved not just flesh, but the very essence of whoever dared meet its gaze. We were frozen in our place, unable to move, unable to speak, and so we were forced to watch this abomination make its way towards us. It slowly emerged from the fog, stepping into the glare of the headlights. In that moment, we got to see this thing for what it truly was. It was grotesquely tall, towering over the car, its body hunched over and stretched like something malnourished and forsaken. Its skin was thin, almost translucent, clinging tightly to skeletal limbs that looked as if they could snap with the slightest pressure. Every bone, every joint jutted out sharply beneath, creating a series of grotesque angles that cast twisted shadows across its body. Its fingers were nightmarish extensions of the creature itself. They were impossibly long, stretched far beyond what seemed natural. Each finger tipped with a wicked, darkened claw that gleamed with a strange, damp sheen. The claws varied in length, jagged and mismatched, with the middle finger reaching disturbingly further than the rest, curling and flexing, as if it were tasting the air. They looked almost serrated, chipped and uneven, as though worn down from tearing through countless victims. As it came closer, its face became horrifyingly clear. Its skin clung tight to its skull, sickly gray and rotten looking, with deep grooves and hollowed pockets. The mouth was a horrific, lipless gash, exposing a cave of razor-sharp, crooked fangs that stained a deep, blood-soaked red. The gums were raw and blackened, framing each crooked, broken tooth with a rotten grin that looked permanently twisted into a sneer. Blood seemed to be smeared around its mouth, dried in places, fresh in others, accentuating the brutality of its monstrous grin. It had long, jagged ears that were rotted into a point and jutted out from its skull like shards of bone, veins dark and visible against the stretched, decaying skin. They looked less like human ears and more like the leathery, bat-like appendages of some ancient predator. They twitched slightly, almost independently of the rest of its head. Its eyes burned with a dreadful intent. There was no humanity in them, only an all-consuming void that seemed to pull at me, to drink every ounce of my fear, to feed off it. It was like staring at something that once resembled a human corpse, but horribly corrupted by something malevolent. Above this creature, I noticed some crows circling above where it stood. There were a handful of crows. They made no noise. I couldn't even hear their wings flapping around. Each of them a silent witness to whatever horror was about to unfold, as if they were bound to this creature, drawn to it like flies to death. I couldn't tear my eyes away from the creature as it began to shift, its slender, broken frame somehow seeming more twisted in the headlights. Then, something began to unfurl from behind its back. At first, I thought it was raising its arms in some grotesque attempt to make itself look bigger. But I quickly realized they weren't arms. They were wings. These wings weren't like anything I'd ever seen. They weren't the grand, feathered appendages of birds or the leathery span of a bat. They were hideous, ragged stumps, stretching out with creaks and snaps that echoed into the quiet fog. The wings extended as though every joint was fighting against itself, each movement creating a series of brittle, bone-like pops that drilled into my ears. The membranes stretched between the crooked ribs were thin, practically translucent in places, with ragged holes torn into them, as if some great force had tried to tear the creature apart long ago and failed. Shreds of dark, decayed tissue clung to the skeletal frames, frayed at the edges, sagging pathetically between the bony supports. These wings weren't built for flight. They were built for fear, a ghastly display of power that seemed to exist solely to terrify. The skeletal structure beneath was painfully visible, each twisted rib curving in unnatural directions. The bony protrusions straddled out at impossible angles, the joints swollen and misshapen, as if the wings were an afterthought, grafted onto its grotesque excuse for a body. And as they finally extended to their full span, they cast a monstrous shadow across the road, engulfing the car in darkness and stretching far into the mist. As if these hideous wings were claiming everything in their reach. My breath hitched, my chest tight as a drum, every instinct screaming at me to run, but I couldn't tear my eyes away. The others were frozen, and I could feel their fear radiating, pulsing as tangible as the icy grip in my own chest. Then, as if sensing our horror, it opened its mouth, revealing those rows of fangs slick with blood and twisted into a grin, and a long forked tongue slithered out, dark and serpent-like, flickering in the headlights. It was glistening, wet and hard, like the flick of a snake. Then came the sound. The creature let out another blood-curdling screech, a sound so impossibly wrong that it made my vision blur, tearing at the air like jagged glass. It was shrill and guttural at the same time, a twisted blend of screeching and deep, choking growls that hit me like nails scraping across steel. But worse, so much worse. Even the headlights flickered in response to the scream, as if even the car was cowering in terror. Every part of me was numb, paralyzed by that unearthly wail. I felt something wet on my face and realized I was sweating, though I hadn't even noticed it starting. The thing in front of us took a step, and the sound it made was so heavy and wrong that I felt it deep in my gut. It was a sick, wet thud, like meat hitting mud, with something brittle cracking beneath it. The noise crooed through my skin, and I couldn't look away. I felt like some part of me was being peeled away with every step I took, piece by piece. I kept telling myself to move, to fight this awful paralysis. I tried to loosen my grip on the wheel, to force my hands to obey me, but I couldn't even twitch a finger. My whole body was cemented in place. Whatever force kept me locked here wasn't just fear. It was something heavier, colder, something that had rooted itself into every muscle, making me a prisoner in my own skin. My heartbeat slurred in my chest, each beat ringing in my ears, reminding me I was still alive. But I wasn't sure I wanted to be. At least not if this was what it meant. A tear slid down my cheek, and I couldn't even lift my hand to wipe it away. The thing's wings stretched wider, draping the car in a shadow that swallowed all the lights, except for those eyes, 2 points of blue fire fixed on me. They weren't just watching, they were starving. I don't know how else to put it. I couldn't stand it. It was all too much. I had tried everything to try escape this thing, but it was too strong, too fast. It was made to kill. I squeezed my eyes shut, hoping this nightmare would all be over soon. But then, I heard something. A rustling sound from far out behind the creature, coming from the woods. For a second, I thought some sort of wild animal, though that thought faded as quick as it came when I watched the creature pause too. Its head tilted, those eerie eyes flickering upward as if it could sense it too. I opened my eyes, desperate for anything to break this moment, and looked where it was looking. There, above the tree line, silhouetted by the moonlight, was a dark shape, a mass, something shifting and flapping. My brain scrambled to make sense of it, and even to this day, I'm still not sure what I was even looking at. At first, I thought it was maybe a storm cloud, but it looked and moved too strangely, almost like it was alive. It folded in on itself, pulsing. The more I stared, the more it seemed to break apart and come back together in the same breath. I was sure it was a swarm of things that resembled bats. Yet the wings were too thin and uneven, some stretching too far before snapping back into place. Others collapsing mid-flight only to be pulled along again, as if something unseen was holding them all together. There was a strange black smoke that surrounded the swarm like a shroud. Within seconds, the things hurtled toward the ground in a chaotic, shifting cloud, a dark mass blurring into the road. As they slammed down, they didn't scatter. Instead, they pulsed together, knotting and writhing in a way that defied any logic, morphing into a single coherent form. It was a sight so alien, so grotesque, that I couldn't force myself to look away. Pieces struck the ground with wet, uneven sounds, then crawled, dragged, pulled themselves toward the center as if they didn't belong to themselves anymore. I saw glimpses, pieces that should have been hidden inside a body, forcing their way into place, guided by a black thread running through it all. Wings didn't vanish, they sank, pushed beneath now forming skin that stretched too tight, too thin, as if it might split again at any second. Something like a spine arched into shape with a series of sharp, cracking jolts, and limbs flailed, wrong at first, bent the wrong way, before wrenching themselves into something human. The naked figure's form finally took shape. It looked like a child from a distance. Their skin was a deathly gray, and they looked horrifyingly malnourished. Their body drew tight, knees pressed hard against their chest, arms locked around as if they were the only thing keeping them from coming apart again. Their back hitched with small broken movements, shoulders jerking as if something beneath the skin still struggled to settle into place. As this small figure's form was finished putting itself back together, I realized who I was looking at. It was the boy from before. This was Cedric Drylock. Then, with a slow, jerking movement, he began to unfurl himself, unfolding each limb as though remembering what it was to be human, standing on shaky, skeletal legs that looked like they could give out at any second. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My mind couldn't process it, couldn't wrap itself around the horror that I had just witnessed. I thought I was watching a swarm of bats, that the dark was playing tricks on my vision, but they didn't behave like bats. Bats don't move like that. Bats don't carry pieces. That's what it looked like though. Not whole creatures, not anything natural. Fragments, shapes that should have been hidden inside a body, dragged through the air within a cloud of dark smoke, all of it twisting together as if it belonged to one thing, morphing, twisting, and somehow coalescing into a child. A human figure formed from hundreds of winged creatures carrying a piece of them, like some unholy magic conjured right before my eyes. How was I supposed to even comprehend what I had just seen? My mind grappled with it, slipping away every time it came close to understanding, like trying to hold on to smoke. The natural world, the world I knew, gravity, life, death, biology, physics, was a kind of framework, something simple and familiar. But in one shattering moment, that framework had been obliterated, scattered to the winds like it had never existed. The edges of reality had frayed, the borders torn wide open, revealing something incomprehensible just beyond. It was like being dropped into a bottomless ocean and told to find my way back. Only there was no sky to orient myself to, no ground to reach. Sitting there in my car, half ripped apart, unable to move, looking at this child who had just appeared out of literal thin air, and this inhuman creature, I understood something. This was real. This was reality, the real world we live in. And from this moment on, I knew I would never be able to look at the world the same way again.